All right, so this mini lecture is going to look at the idea of superposition. And superposition is simply what happens when two waves interact with one another. And we see waves interacting with each other a lot in our lives, whether it's water waves on the lake or sound waves or putting together different frequencies of waves to make new sounds synthetically. All of that happens through the idea of superposition, and it's a very straightforward idea. We want to remember that waves are energy, right? Energy transferring through a medium. So let's imagine that we have a string, and on one end of the string, I send a pulse moving to the right. And on the other end of the string, I send a pulse moving to the left. So these two pulses are traveling towards one another. These energies are still moving along, being transmitted along this string. As they begin to approach one another, what do you imagine happens? You probably have really good intuitions about this. As these two pulses come close to each other, when they meet in the middle, do they get rid of each other? No, right? They enhance each other. So as they meet in the middle, we see a larger pulse, and as those two energies pass through, we still have this energy. That wave is still traveling to the right from this side. This wave is still traveling to the left. So it's as if they pass through one another, but in the middle, those two energies combined. Now, if those two energies are combining and these pulses are both in the upper direction, and those two energies are combining, we get those two energies adding up. We get an increase in the energy at that point. And as those energies pass through each other, as that energy continues down this wave, and that wave pulse continues in that direction, the middle is left undisturbed, as we know of a wave. It's energy passing through a medium, ultimately leaving it undisturbed, and those two wave pulses continue along their way. This superposition, adding of these positions, adding of these two energies, when they add up and build each other, we call this constructive behavior. Sometimes we'll call that constructive interference. And the idea of superposition is the mathematical representation of that, adding up of those waves. But you might imagine that if I have a wave pulse, this wave pulse erased. All right. That wave pulse, what if instead I sent a wave pulse along the string in the downward direction? So I shake this end of the string upwards, I shake this end of the string downwards, and I send these two wave pulses towards each other. What happens in the middle? Well, as these two wave pulses get closer and closer together, the energies add up, but this energy is causing the string to go down in the middle. This energy is causing the string to go up in the middle, and we end up with no motion at all in the middle as those two waves pass each other. This is what we would call destructive interference, bound by the principle of superposition, the adding of the energies as two waves interact with one another. Right. How do those energies add? Well, it's important to understand that they add linearly. So, if I have a wave pulse that displaces the wave by 1 inch, and this wave pulse displaces the string downward by 1 inch, as they meet together, that wave will not be, or excuse me, that string will not be displaced at all. 1 inch up, 1 inch down. The energy to move it 1 inch up, the energy to move it 1 inch down adds linearly to 0. But what if this wave pulse is bigger? More energy. What's going to happen? We're still going to have destructive interference because we're subtracting, but what's going to happen in the middle? Well, if let's say this amplitude is 2 times the amplitude of this wave pulse. What do you think is going to happen in the middle? Well, as I come to the middle, I have one, I'm going to put a dashed line. I have one wave pulse of 1 up. It's a different color. I have 2 wave pulses, 2 times the energy of the wave pulse in the downward direction. And what do you think is going to happen in the middle? Yeah, these add linearly, and I'll get a wave pulse of 1 amplitude in the downward direction in that when those two interfere with one another. And as that wave pulse goes by this one, my larger wave pulse continues moving in the leftward direction, and my smaller wave pulse continues moving in the rightward direction. So we're simply adding the waves up. Now, this addition of waves is exactly what we do when we add different sounds together and make different noises that we hear that aren't pure tones. So multiple tones together gives us a certain simulation, a certain type of music, sound. And if they're not pure tones, they're added through this superposition principle. All right, so superposition is simply the adding of waves. That energy that is the waves is being added linearly, and we can either get constructive interference where it enhances the wave, the behavior of the medium, or destructive interference where it diminishes the behavior of the medium. All right, good job.